Welcome back. We are studying together the 5th chapter of Hilchot Qiddush HaHodesh. This chapter is the last chapter, I'd say, that is more or less easy and relatively straightforward and short. And from the next chapter and on, we start warming up for what's really going to be challenging, which is Sod HaIbur, starting with the 9th and then even more with the 11th chapter and through the 19th chapter of this treatise. This chapter will deal with something that is very relevant to us, especially living in Chutz La'aretz, and that is Yom Tov Shani Shel Galuyot, the reasons for it, and its application. Halacha Aleph. כל שאמרנו מקביעת ראש החודש על ראייה ועיבור השנה מפני הזמן ומפני הצורך, אין עושים אותו אלא סנהדרין שבארץ ישראל, או בדין הסמוכים שבארץ ישראל שנתנו להם הסנהדרין רשות. The first 4 chapters, everything we've spoken about regarding the Kavi'ah of Rosh Chodesh, regarding the adding of months, the extension of the years, and so on and so forth, it can only be done by the Sanhedrin or by a Bet Din in Israel that has been specifically authorized and is acting on behalf of the Sanhedrin. שכך נאמר למשה ואהרון, החודש הזה לכם ראש חודשים. We read this pasuk already and explained that the statement to Moshe and Aaron had been, this month should be declared by you and those who are in your role, namely the Bet Din HaGadol. ומפי השמועה למדו איש מפי איש מאיש ממשה רבנו, שכך הוא פירוש הדבר, העדות זו תהיה מסורה לכם ולכל העומד אחריהם במקומן, אבל בזמן ששם סנהדרין בארץ ישראל, אין קובעים חודשים ומעברים שנים, אלא בחשבון זה שאנו מחשבים בו היום. So we learn by tradition that the pasuk means that this determination of Rashi Chodashim is only given, the only one who's capable of doing so is the Bet Din HaGadol in lieu of Moshe and Aaron. In other words, the Sanhedrin. However, when we don't have a Sanhedrin, then all the months and the years are determined by a set calculation, a calendar, just like we do today. Halacha Bet. ודבר זה הלכה למשה מסיני הוא, and this is something that's called הלכה למשה מסיני. Now, by the way, just to refresh our memory, going back all the way to the Agdama, we explained, according to Rambam, that הלכה למשה מסיני does not mean that historically this is something that was told to Moshe Rabbeinu, and I think that this halacha makes this very, very clear, because it's a halacha that deals with a situation that only arose many, many, many thousands of years later, and it probably was developed when the need arose. שבזמן שיש סנהדרין, קובעים על ראייה, ובזמן שאין שם סנהדרין, קובעים על חשבון זה שאנו מחשבים בו היום ואין נזקקים לראייה. So this halacha Moshe Sinai says that when we have a Sanhedrin, we go by the testimonies and by the decisions of the Bet Din, and when we don't, then we go by the calculation like we do today. ואין נזקקים לראייה, אלא פעמים שיהיה יום שקובעים בו בחשבון זה הוא יום הראייה, או קודם לו ביום או אחריו ביום, and we don't care about the sighting of the moon, and it can happen that what we call Rosh Chodesh sometimes occurs a day before or a day after the night when the moon is visible for the first time. וזה שיהיה אחר הראייה ביום פלא הוא, ובארצות של מערב ארץ ישראל. And yes, Rambam says it's a little bit weird for someone to see the moon a day after Rosh Chodesh, or that Rosh Chodesh is a day after the moon sighting, and this happens mostly on lands that are to the west of Eretz Israel. הלכה ג' וממתי התחילו כל ישראל לחשב בחשבון זה? Since when did Am Israel begin to utilize this fixed calendar, this calculation? מסוף חכמי תלמוד, from the end of the times of the Gemara. בעת שחרבה ארץ ישראל, from the time that Eretz Israel had been destroyed, there were many raids into Eretz Israel, and the communities in Eretz Israel did not last for long after, towards the end of the Gemara. Even through the Gemara, the main center had become Bavel. ולא נשאר שם בית דין קבוע. It came to the point that Eretz Israel lost any established set bedin. אבל בימי חכמי משנה, וכן בימי חכמי תלמוד עד ימי אביה ורבא, however, during the time of חכמי המשנה and the Amoraim until the time of Abaye and Rava, על קביעת ארץ ישראל היו סומכים, they would still be dependent, reliant on the counting that, so on the declarations that the Bet Din, whatever Bet Din that was then in Eretz Israel would do. הלכה ד', now we start going to יום טוב שני. כשהייתה סנהדרין קיימת והן קובעים על הראייה, when we had Sanhedrin and they would declare the month by reason of the testimony, היו בני ארץ ישראל וכל המקומות שמגיעים עליהן של לוחי תשרי, עושים ימים טובים יום אחד בלבד. Then everyone living in Eretz Israel and outside Eretz Israel, everywhere where the Sheluchim of Tishri can arrive on time, they would do Yom Tov only one day. ושאר המקומות הרחוקות של שלוחי תשרי מגיעים עליהן, and other places that were farther away, to which שלוחי תשרי would not arrive on time, היו עושים שני ימים מספק. They would always have this custom of having Yom Tov Sheni out of an actual doubt of whether the Rosh Chodesh had been declared or not. לפי שלא היו יודעים יום שקבעו בו בני ארץ ישראל את החודש, for they wouldn't know what day had been established by בני ארץ ישראל for ראש חודש. הלכה ה' בזמן הזה, שאין שם סנהדרין ובית דין של ארץ ישראל קובעים על חשבון זה, during this time that we have no Sanhedrin, and the Bet Din of Eretz Israel, they establish the Rosh Chodesh according to this calculation, היה מן הדין שיהיו בכל המקומות עושים יום טוב אחד, it would be appropriate for everywhere to only do one day. We no longer have this effect. It's not about the sighting anymore. We just follow this calendar. Everyone can access the calendar from Australia to the North Pole and everything in between. Everyone has access to the same calendar. We don't need to hear when they saw this calendar in Yerushalayim. אפילו המקומות הרחוקות שבחוץ על הארץ כמו בני ארץ ישראל, and even those places in חוץ לארץ that are very far away should be doing the same as ארץ ישראל, שהכל על חשבון אחד, סומכים, given that everyone actually relies on the same calculations. וקובעים, אבל תקנת חכמים היא שיזהרו במנהג אבותיהם שבידיהם. However, חכמים establish a תקנה. This tekana must have happened around the same time they started using the calendar for people to continue keeping this tradition that had been started some generations prior. Halakha Vav. And by the way, I just want to point out something very important. A lot of people say, I wish we had a Sanhedrin today because they would do away with the second day of Yom Tov. It's a fine thought. I wish we had a Sanhedrin today. I pray for it 3 times a day. Hashiva Shofetenu Kevarishona, and I believe that without a Sanhedrin, we cannot have Melech HaMashiach that needs to be approved by a Sanhedrin. However, I'm not convinced that if we had a Sanhedrin of worthy Chachamim, they'd be very urged to approve the second day of Yom Tov. And my proof to that is that we had a Bet Din with authority back in the times of the Gemara, and that Bet Din opted for having people continue doing 2 days, even though they already had a fixed calendar. So I have my reasons. I shared some of them before of why I think that is the case. I think that it has to do with making us feel, us living in Chutz La'aretz, that something is wrong, that we are not practicing like the Torah says, and encouraging us to reconsider whether this is the place in which we should be living and practicing mitzvot. So if that's the reason, then there is a benefit to having 2 days, other than just resolving a safek because of what's happening in Yerushalayim, which is no longer relevant. Halacha Vav. So again, the tekana was that everyone continues the minhag they had up to that date. Halacha Vav. Lefichach. Given that this is the case, כל מקום שלא היו שלוחי תשרי מגיעים אליו כשהיו השלוחים יוצאים every place to which the Shiluchim of Tishrei would not have arrived, back when the Shiluchim used to be sent, יעשו שני ימים, ואפילו בזמן הזה they should do 2 days of Yom Tov, even nowadays, כמו שהיו עושים בזמן שבני ארץ ישראל קובעים על הראייה, just like they used to do when the people of Eretz Israel used to establish the month on the sighting of the moon. ובני ארץ ישראל בזמן הזה עושים יום אחד כמנהגן, שמעולם לא עשו שני ימים, and people living in Eretz Israel, they should do 1 day, because they never had that custom, the tradition, and the tekana therefore does not apply to them to continue that tekana of doing the second day as well. נמצא יום טוב שני שאנו עושים בגלויות בזמן הזה מדברי סופרים שתיקנו דבר זה. Therefore, the second day that we do everywhere on the galuyot is מדרבנן, is מדברי סופרים. It's not the oraita. It doesn't have the same kedusha of יום טוב ראשון. הלכה זין, יום טוב של ראש השנה. בזמן שהיו קובעים על הראייה, היו רוב בני ישראל עושים אותו שני ימים טובים בספק. The Yom Tov of Rosh Hashanah, even on those times, or starting with those times when Rosh HaHodesh was determined by the Bet Din, everyone would do it, or the majority of the people in Israel would do it 2 days out of Safek. The minhag is different with respect to Rosh Hashanah and with respect to everywhere else. לפי שלא היו יודעים יום שקבעו בו בדין את החודש, שאין השלוחים נוסעים ביום טוב, because there was no way for them to know when the Bet Din would have determined to establish Rosh Chodesh Tishri, because the shluchim would not go out on Yom Tov, they'd go out only after Yom Tov, so there was no way for them to know. הלכה ח' ולא עוד, אלא אפילו בירושלים עצמה שהוא מקום בית דין. פעמים רבות היו עושים יום טוב של ראש השנה שני ימים טובים. And not only that, but also in Yerushalayim itself, the place where the Bet Din resides, many times they would end up doing Yom Tov of Rosh Hashanah twice, 2 days in a row. How so? שאם לא באו עדים כל יום שלושים, because think about this, if on the 30th day of Elul, they have no witnesses, נוהרים היו באותו היום שמספים לעדים קודש, what do you do this day? So this day, let's say it's Tuesday, and today could either be Rosh Hashanah, or it could be the 30th of Elul. Now what do you do? So misafek, because you don't know until the end of the day, they used to keep that first day, the 30th day, no matter what, that day, and then the day after, if it turns out the Adim did not come today, it becomes a Yom Tov again. So, in other words, the 30th day will always be treated as Yom Tov. The only question is if the day tomorrow is going to be Yom Tov or not. So if you are in Yerushalayim, you will know for a fact what Bet Din has decided, and then you'll know if Wednesday is going to have to be Rosh Hashanah as well. But many times, every time that Chodesh Elul ends up being Chodesh Haser, Rosh Hashanah ends up being 2 days. והואיל והיו עושים אותו שני ימים אפילו בזמן הראייה, and given that this was the case, even when they used to rely on the sighting of the moon, התקינו, they established a separate תקנה, שיהיו עושים אפילו בני ארץ ישראל אותו תמיד שני ימים, that even people living in Eretz Israel should do Rosh Hashanah for 2 days, בזמן הזה שקובעים על החשבון. Today, when we are no longer relying on the sighting and declaration of the Bet Din, but rather on the calculation and the fixed calendar. הנה למדת. So what do you conclude? שאפילו יום טוב שני של ראש השנה, בזמן הזה מדברי סופרים, even the second day of Rosh Hashanah, which we saw in Ilchot Yom Tov, is different for certain things. It's considered Kedusha Arichta. It's a long Kedusha. Both Yamim Tovim are considered as one Yom Tov for certain things, like Mukseh. However, the second day is only Midivre Soferim. אין עשיית יום אחד תלויה בקריבת המקום. הרמב"ם now wants to clarify, it's not always about how far you are from Bet HaMikdash. It doesn't necessarily have to do with the distance of your town from Yerushalayim. כיצד? אם יהיה מקום בינו ובין ירושלים מעלה 5 ימים ופחות, שבוודאי אפשר שיגיעו להם שלוחים. If the distance between one's hometown and Yerushalayim is 5 days or less, where it's clear, it's obvious that the shluchim can arrive on time for whatever is necessary, like for example Yom Kippurim, אין אומרים שאנשי מקום זה עושים יום טוב יום אחד, שמי אומר לנו שהיו השלוחים יוצאים למקום זה? This doesn't mean that the people of that place can go ahead and only keep 1 day of Yom Tov, because again, remember the Tekana was everyone continues doing what they used to do, and the fact that someone is 5 days from Yerushalayim doesn't mean that Yerushalayim actually used to send Sheluchim, and that the Sheluchim used to arrive on time, which means for all we know, this town, a few generations ago, back when we used to rely on the Re'iyah, may have had a minhag of doubling the Yom Tov. Therefore, we also have to double the Yom Tov. It's possible the Sheluchim would not be sent to that place because there weren't enough Jews in that area. And the Jewish community only established itself after we started counting by the calendar. שחייבים לעשות 2 ימים, או מפני שהיה חירום בדרך, or maybe there was some dangers on the way, and therefore people the Sheluchim would not arrive on time, כדרך שהיה בין יהודה וגליל וחכמי המשנה, just like it happened between Yehuda and Galil, which is much less than 5 days, in the times of חכמי המשנה, where they also used to do 2 days, because it was the roads were very dangerous and the Sheluchim would just simply not make it on time, not because it was too far, but because it was dangerous. או מפני שהיו הגויים מונעים את השלוחים לעבור ביניהם, or perhaps sometimes the goyim would prevent the shluchim to go among them. הלחיות ואילו היה הדבר תלוי בקריבת המקום, and if it was a function of distance alone, says Rambam, היו כל בני מצרים עושים יום אחד, then think about this, all of Egypt would need to do only 1 day, שהרי אפשר שיגיעו להם שלוחי תשרי, the shluchim of Tishri could certainly get there on time for Sukkot, שאין בין ירושלים ומצרים על דרך אשקלון, because if you go through Ashkelon from Yerushalayim to Misraim, in other words through Gaza, אלא מהלך, the distance, the actual distance that Rambam says, and Rambam is someone who lived both in Misraim, and for a very, very, very short while he tried to live in Eretz Israel. He knew this. שמונה ימים או פחות, it only takes 8 days or less. וכן רוב סוריה, so to the majority of what is today the country of Syria, if you can still call it a country, but it's the Levant. הלמדת שאין הדבר תלוי בהיות המקום קרוב. So just have it in mind, learn this, understand this. Rambam says it's not a function of distance alone. הלכה י"א. נמצא עיקר דבר זה על דרך זו כך הוא. So I'm going to explain to you, says Rambam, what is the principle. כל מקום שיש בינו ובין ירושלים מהלך יותר 10 ימים גמורים, anywhere that has between it and Yerushalayim 10 days or more of a distance, עושים 2 ימים לעולם כמנהגם מקודם. Then those people should, by all accounts, do 2 days like they always used to do. שאין שלוחי כל תשרי ותשרי מגיעין אלא למקום שבינו ובין ירושלים מהלך 10 ימים ופחות, because the sheluchim of Tishri need at the very least 10 days. So if it's more than 10 days, you know for a fact sheluchai Tishri would not have arrived to that place. That takes care of 99.999% of the world. וכל מקום שבינו ובין ירושלים מהלך 10 ימים בשווה ופחות, and anywhere that is 10 days or less far from Yerushalayim, שאפשר שיהיו שלוחים מגיעים אליו, where it's conceivable, it's possible that the שלוחי תשרי could arrive on time, רואים, then we ask the following question. אם אותו המקום מארץ ישראל שהיו בה ישראל בשעת הראייה בכיבוש שני, is this a place that used to be inhabited by Jewish communities back when, in the times of the second Bet HaMikdash and through the Tanaim, they still used to rely on the Re'iyah, כגון Usha, Ushfar'am, like the city of Usha where there was a yeshiva, Ushfar'am, ולוד ויבנה ונוב וטבריה וכיוצא בהן, like all of these famous cities that had settlements during this time. So what do we know if they had a settlement? If we know if they had a settlement, we can assume that Yerushalayim would have sent shalichim to those areas, and because we know the distance is less than 10 days, we can assume that they would have arrived on time for Tishri. Ergo, they wouldn't have had the minhag of 2 days. Ergo, the tekana of continuing the minhag of 2 days wouldn't apply to these places. עושים יום אחד בלבד, and they only need to do 1 day. ואם אותו המקום מסוריה כגון סול ודמשק ואשקלון וכיוצא בהן, however, if this place is of Syria, and Syria is not only Syria but much of the Levant, like for example the towns of Sor that is in Lebanon, ודמשק, Damascus, ואשקלון וכיוצא בהן, I do not know if this Ashkelon is the same Ashkelon as we have today, but let's assume that according to Harambam, in this Ashkelon there were no Jews back then it follows perhaps that in the town of Ashkelon they should continue doing 2 days. That's a very interesting point. Again, I'm not saying הלכה למעשה, but it would follow from this statement. וכיוצא בהן, או מחוץ לארץ, or if somewhere outside Eretz Israel, כגון מצרים ועמון ומואב וכיוצא בהן, like מצרים and Ammon Moab is Saudi Arabia and Jordan, and like those places, עושים כמנהג אבותיהן שבידיהן, then those places need to look back and try to track down what tradition they have. אם יום אחד, if that place has a minhag of keeping 1 day, they continue doing 1 day. ואם שני ימים, if it's 2 days, then 2 days. הלכה י"ב, מקום שבינו ובין ירושלים 10 או פחות מ10 והוא סוריה או חוץ לארץ, ואין להם מנהג. Now, one of these places we just defined, less than 10 days from Yerushalayim, and not a place that was necessarily inhabited by the Jewish community during the time of Qiddush HaHodesh, and they have no minhag, או שהיא העיר שנתחדשה במדבר ארץ ישראל, or a city that was established anew in the middle of the desert in Eretz Israel, for example, let's say Yeruham or Dimona or Yotveta or Eilat, או מקום ששכנו בו ישראל עתה, or a place to which a Jewish community only moved into right now only, עושים שני ימים, they should do 2 days. It follows from here that according to Harambam, in Eilat, people should be doing 2 days of Yom Tov. Very interesting. כמנהג רוב העולם, like the rest or the majority, 99.9% of the world that keeps 2 days. וכל יום טוב שני מדברי סופרים. And again, a reminder, יום טוב שני, the entirety of this whole mechanism, the system, is all מדברי סופרים, ואפילו יום טוב שני של ראש השנה, שהכל עושים אותו בזמן הזה, even the one of ראש השנה that everyone does nowadays. הלכה י"ג, last הלכה of the chapter. זה שאנו מחשבים בזמן הזה כל אחד ואחד בעירו ואומרים שראש חודש יום פלוני ויום טוב ביום פלוני, לא בחשבון שלנו אנו קובעים. Now, an interesting point about authority. So, how do we, by what right, by what fiat, what authority do we get to say that Pesach is going to be Be'ezrat Hashem this coming Shabbat night? How did we decide suddenly, who decided that Rosh Chodesh Nisan was about 8 days ago, 9 days ago? I'm sorry, at 11 days ago. לא בחשבון שלנו אנו קובעים. We are not doing this based on our own calculations and our own consultation with his fixed calendar. ולא עליו אנו סומכים. This is not the basis for the date. שאין מעברים שנים וקובעים חודשים בחוץ לארץ, because one may not establish Rosh Chodesh or Hagim in חוץ לארץ, even on the basis of a fixed calendar. ואין אנו סומכים אלא על חשבון בני ארץ ישראל וקביעתם. And what we are doing indirectly, this is a virtual reality, but what we are doing is we are relying on people living in Eretz Israel and their establishing of Rosh Chodesh and of the Hagim. וזה שאנו מחשבים לגלות הדבר בלבד, כיוון שאנו יודעים שעל חשבון זה הם סומכים. So why do we bother to look at the calendar and to do the calculations in חוץ לארץ, if people in Israel are already doing it? Because by doing so, we'll know what conclusion they are going to be arriving at Israel. So we will have arrived to the same conclusion independently. But again, what gives this authority is the fact that in Eretz Israel, they've come to the same conclusion. Just to make sure I read this, אנו מחשבים לידע יום שקבעו בו בין ארץ ישראל, איזה יום הוא. וקביעת בין ארץ ישראל, אותו הוא שיהיה ראש חודש או יום טוב, לא מפני חשבון שאנו מחשבים, and it's only the fact that in Israel, people are treating this as Rosh Chodesh and or as Hagim, that this gives any validity to our treatment of this date. So just to review this, right now, let's say we had a Rosh Chodesh Nisan a few days ago. How do we know that Rosh Chodesh Nisan? Well, we follow a certain calculation that was passed down to us by the Amoraim. Is that calculation self-executing? No. The community, the establishment that lives in Eretz Israel, the Yehudim living there, and this is one of the proofs that there has always been, Harambam mentions this somewhere else, there have always been Jews living in Eretz Israel ever since we arrived there with Yoshua bin Nun. There's never been a time that there were no Jews in Eretz Israel, and that's why we can continuously have Hagim, because if, God forbid, for 1 month there were no Jews in Eretz Israel, then even if we have the calendar, even if we know when Rosh Chodesh should fall, the fact that nobody in Israel has come to the same conclusion just prevents everyone else worldwide from even having Rosh Chodesh and even having anything that follows from that Rosh Chodesh, like the holidays. So again, it's an interesting point. We need the people in Eretz Israel to come to the same conclusion we do. Now we can be pretty sure, because it's a mathematical formula, as we're going to see in the following chapters, that they will reach to the same conclusion, and we don't need to actually phone them and ask them, hey guys, let me just check, did you also have Rosh Chodesh yesterday? We can know that, but it's important to remember the authority of this determination still follows from the people, and specifically from the people living in Eretz Israel. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen.